tell us a bit about the story behind the journey.
So I was working in PC World in Leeds, and I bought a computer and I bought a modem, and in those days you just plug the modem into the phone line and it made that funny noise. And I knew that I wanted to get on the internet because I'd read about this thing called the internet. And in those days there was very few people on the internet. So I asked a few people in the shop, how do you get on the internet? And none of the staff knew how to get on the internet. They said, don't know. Phoned up Demon Internet. I said, I want to go on the internet. What do I need? And this guy said, you need a browser. I said, how do you get one of those? He said, you can FTP it from our site. And I thought, what the hell's an FTP? And FTP is when you download something, right? But you can't download it until you're on the internet.
Right, so it's a chicken and egg scenario.
That's right.
There.
So eventually I got a CD from a magazine cover and for CompuServe. And when I got onto the internet with CompuServe, which is an American company, I thought, wow, this is great. Everyone's going to want to get on the internet, because I loved it. And I thought the most valuable page is the first page that you see, because you can communicate with the customer and you can make money from that customer. And I thought, at the moment, other people are making money from our customers every time we sell a computer. And it occurred to me that if we became the internet service provider, the ISP, every time we sell a computer, we can say, here you go, you need the internet. And you don't have to download the browser because it'll be on the CD. And not only that, but millions of people are walking into the shop every week. If you pile up CDs, they can just pick up a CD and try the internet. And then I thought, great idea. So I went to see the managing director of PC World. I told him about the idea, and he said, no, don't worry about it. And then I kept on thinking about it, and eventually I saw this magazine, Vanity Fair. And in this magazine, there was an article about the new establishment. And they said the old establishment was the oil barons and manufacturers and things like that. And they said new establishment were people that controlled content and media. And Steve Jobs was in it, Bill Gates was in it, and a guy called Ted Turner, who owns and started CNN, the world's first 24-hour news channel. And in this, there was somebody talking about Ted, and what he said was, what people like Ted are required to do is do the obvious before it becomes obvious to everyone else. Because by the time it becomes obvious to everyone else, it's too late, because people like Ted have done it and the other guys haven't. I mean, what possible reason did Ted have to start a 24-hour news channel? I thought, wow, that's right, isn't it? The history is littered with thousands of examples of ordinary people doing extraordinary things because they saw the obvious before other people. And just because the managing director of PC World said no, doesn't mean to say it's not a good idea. I mean, when something happens, the first thing you do is go onto CNN, a 24-hour news channel, because people probably thought it was about watching news 24 hours a day. And it's not. It's about watching news when you want to watch it, whenever you want to watch it, 24 hours a day. So I persevered and persevered, and eventually I got to see the group CEO of Dixon's, and he said, okay, let's do it. So that's how it happened. I was still an employee of Dixon's, and the concept behind Freeserve was that Dixon's didn't know anything about technology. I didn't either, so we'd outsource the technology. So we found a company in Leeds called Planet Online, and they managed the technology. And we didn't need a marketing department because people were walking to our shops. And I said to Dixon's, well, a small little box at the bottom of every newspaper advert that promotes Freeserve. And in most days, there was an advert for Dixon's, Curry's, PC World in every newspaper. So people reading it would find out about Freeserve. So we spent no money on marketing. Dixon's already had the largest call center in Europe to handle all the software and technology, computers and what have you, so they handled the support for this as well. So we launched with just 3 people. There was no money required either, really. So they put in a couple of £100,000 to pay the wages and things like the office and things like that. So it was unbelievably cheap and unbelievably simple as well. And then the first day it launched, it became successful. People were walking to our shops all over the country picking up CDs. Within 3 months, we became the largest ISP in the UK. And previously, it was AOL, right, America Online. hard to believe, and we were just talking about garlic bread. And you can imagine someone going up to their boss in a bakery saying, we should be selling garlic bread.
Yes.
Bread with garlic on it, don't be stupid. And that's what happens, it's the obvious ideas and people say no. And now they look back and think, why didn't we say yes before, you know? Yes. But it took 18 months for them to say yes. And the advantage of doing it with a big firm is you don't have to worry about money.
Right.
It's great, you're going to get paid every month and you don't have to worry about anything. All you focus on is growing the business. Without Dixon's I couldn't have done it, because the route to market. Whereas if you did it on my own, first I had to raise money and get people to believe it, and then you had to then pay for marketing. So the cost of acquisition of a customer was very large. That's one of the biggest reasons why businesses fail, because they've got a great idea, but they underestimate how much it costs to get the customer. It costs a fortune. Yeah. So they end up failing, because you meet lots of people that they've been around for 6 months or so, and they haven't got any customers. And the route to market was so important. Every day people walk, 1,000 shops, just picking up CDs. Yeah. Every time we sold a computer, here you go. Have a free CD. Yeah, it's got everything on there. You don't need to do anything. And if you like it, use it. If you don't like it, don't use it. It's up to you.
There were other ISPs around at the time.
And they were all charging.
Yes. And you basically came in and disrupted the market.
Well, it was again, it was an accident. Right. Because we were going to charge as well, and then BT launched something called BT Click, which was a local rate phone call plus a penny a minute. And so I thought, shit, pay as you go. When BT was privatised, the law changed. So if the call starts on one network and terminates on another, BT have to share that revenue. Right. It's called interchange. They've got to share it. And we were looking at it and found out you got more money for a local rate phone call than BT Click. Right. So I thought, why don't we just go free? And then we don't have to worry about contracts or direct debits or bad debt or anything like that. And then with the first month we got a big check from BT because there's so many calls. Yes. So it all added up, and then we had search engine, we had shopping channels and things like that.
So then I guess the next set of revenue was ad revenue and sort of the marketing side of things.
Yeah. So we got money for every time somebody did a search, because the first page was the important page. Yes. So we had a search engine on there, we had shopping channels, we had all sorts of things, and we got money for all of those. Right. So we were profitable within a few months. Right. And it just made an enormous difference. And then everyone wanted to float their business. Yeah. All had to have a deal with Freeserve because we were the largest. So they were knocking on our door and paying us hundreds of thousands of pounds to be on our page, on our site. Yes. So we were getting money. It was great. And it was a .com boom. And then 9 months after we started, Dixon's decided they were going to float it. And then we became a separate business then. Right. And we floated for £1.5 billion.
Wow. Yeah. So did you have shares in them at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
When we floated, that's when we became a separate business, and I got shares because we were floated on the stock exchange, and then shares, and it was just crazy. Yes. The amount of money that was being made was just enormous, enormous. And then kept going up. We became more valuable than Dixon's, believe it or not. And at one point we got to £9 billion.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive. You weren't tempted by continuing down that kind of tech avenue?
I'm a retailer. I think to myself, I'm a retailer.
Yeah.
And you can apply retail to any business. So that's what it's about. And I didn't know anything about technology either. Right. All I knew was what the problems people had and how you can fix those problems.
Yes. Yeah.
Same in law. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know anything about law. All I know is the problems that people have got and what they can do to fix those problems.
Yes.
Well, one of the biggest things that people underestimate is acquiring customers. And you come up with an idea and you launch it, and there was a saying about if you build it, they will come. And they find out that that's not the case. If you build it, you've got to get them to come. And they sit back and think, what we're going to do now? And it costs a lot more money than they think to acquire customers. We didn't have that problem because people were walking to our shops. Most towns were the Dixon's, Curry's, PC World, and we were selling, thousands and thousands of PCs every day. And the other thing that I didn't have a problem with was worrying about the money, because that's the other thing people have to worry about is money. It's a big, big problem, either getting VCs to back you or going to the bank or whatever. I never even worried about money, and that made it a big difference between us and normal companies. So I knew I was going to get paid every month. So there was no stress in that, whereas that's the stress that startups face.
And is there sort of a distinct difference, do you think, between entrepreneurs, business people, founders, and which one of those would you class yourself as?
I actually, something that I thought about for many, many years, what is the difference between an entrepreneur and a business person? And it's three things. The first thing is that an entrepreneur has great observational skills. They see things that other people don't see. You see the smallest little things that you can then learn from. So they have great observational skills. The next one is they have great empathy as well. They can put themselves in the customer's shoes. And I don't believe in market research or customer surveys. And so we did no market research for Freeserve. I just thought, if I was a customer, what would I want? And I'm already the customer because I've tried to get on the internet and I couldn't. So, but you've got to pretend that you're the customer. And the last one is that entrepreneurs can they see it before they believe it, whereas a business person will only believe it once they've seen it. A great example of this is Steve Jobs. He went to his board and he said, "Look, we don't control the last piece of the jigsaw. Someone else does. So I think we should open shops where we can sell our technology to the customer." And the board said, "No, not doing that, because Gateway tried it, didn't work for them, it's not going to work for us either." And Steve Jobs, being Steve Jobs, didn't agree with that, and he went away and he built a shop in a warehouse and messed around with it, got it just right. And then he said to his board, "Look, there's a minibus outside, I want to take you somewhere." And he took them to the warehouse and he showed them the shop. And once they saw the actual shop, they thought, "Oh, this is fantastic, okay, let's do it." So entrepreneurs will see it before it actually happens. They imagine it and they can picture it in their mind, whereas business people, I've seen this so many times, keep on saying no until they actually see it, and then they change their mind. So it's three things: observation, empathy, and see it before it happens. I admire Starbucks for the reason is because when we were growing up, we didn't have coffee shops, and the guy who started Starbucks, he was in the same position as me really. He went to Milan. He used to work for a company called Starbucks, and Starbucks sold coffee by the pound. And he noticed when he was walking down the streets in Milan, all these coffee shops, the aroma, the atmosphere, and you could see that clearly people were going there day after day. So when he got back to Seattle, he said to the owners of Starbucks, "We've got it all wrong. We should be selling coffee by the cup and not the pound." And just like me, the owners of Starbucks said, "No, it's not going to work." So he left Starbucks and he started a separate coffee shop, and it was so successful that he liked the brand Starbucks and he actually bought it off the owners. And now we've got Starbucks everywhere, and we've got Caffè Nero and things like that. All over the world we've got coffee shops, but it's hard to believe when we were growing up we didn't have coffee shops. So that's why I admire Starbucks, because the guy saw something, spotted something through observation, and just like me, the people said no.
For people looking to start businesses or to take their idea from an idea and make it into something commercial, what's your sort of main pieces of advice?
The hardest thing is coming up with the idea. It's very, very difficult to come up with an idea. And ideas mostly come as by accident, a reaction to an event. Something will happen and you think, I've got a great idea. So, in my case, I wanted to get on the internet and nobody could tell me how. And somebody else will come up with an idea as well. But the biggest issue is that they won't do anything about it. They might tell someone, but they won't do anything about it, and they'll come up with reasons why it's not going to work. They talk themselves out of it. So if you come up with an idea, you've got to do something about it. But most ideas aren't any good either. And that's called ugly baby syndrome, which, as you can imagine, you've got parents that have got a baby and they're in love with their baby because it's their baby. And you come along and you see that baby and think, shit, that's an ugly baby, isn't it? So what do you do? Do you be honest and say, no, it's not going to work, or do you actually, you know, say, oh, it's a beautiful baby? You've got to be honest and don't tell people with a vested interest, you know, like your parents or your friends, because you see them on the X Factor, don't you, in the background with the t-shirts on, but it's obvious that they can't sing. So they made a mistake of only asking people with a vested interest. So if you come up with an idea, ask people that haven't got vested interest, because hopefully they'll tell you the truth, like with the ugly baby.
Do you recommend business planning and structure, or is it a gut feel?
Yeah, I hate business plans. Absolutely hate them. Because you can't actually predict how successful an idea is going to be. We did a business plan for Freeserve only because Dixon's wanted one, but I didn't write it, someone else did. It was just, you know. After we launched it, we never ever looked at it. You know? And the day you open your doors, it's going to go in a different way. But I believe in your gut feeling and empathy, putting yourselves in the customer's shoes. Is it solving a problem that people actually need to be solved?
In establishing a company, what's your advice around sort of brand and marketing?
I see lots of names that you can't pronounce, that you can't spell. And you know, if I can't pronounce them or spell them, then customers aren't going to be able to pronounce or spell them, and they're certainly not going to be able to remember them as well. So you've got to have a name that you can pronounce and spell. That's very important. You've got to have a great looking logo and brand, and then you've got to maintain that. You can't just have people within the company changing and adding bits onto it. So you've got to have brand continuity as well. But like I said previously, you've got to keep on pivoting, you've got to keep on changing. And you've got to change while customers are still spending money with you. Lots of people make the mistake of changing once people have stopped spending money with them. And the only reason they're changing is because of that reason. And it's too late then. So keep on spending money with branding whilst customers are still with you. But it doesn't matter what business you're in. Retail can be applied to any business. Yes. It's exactly the same. So one of the things I'd give advice to people is that they should go shopping, go to supermarkets, go to IKEA, go to places like that, and don't buy anything, and just look and observe. And there's lots and lots of lessons you can learn by walking around, observations that you never ever even thought, and that's why you end up buying more food than you intended to buy, and you end up throwing away food that you never ate, because the supermarkets and brands are very good at projecting their message. So do that and don't spend any money, and you'll learn an awful lot.
How important do you think it is to have free time when you're growing a business?
I remember when Freeserve was in full swing that I was very busy. I've got a month in 2000 that I've kept from my diary, and because it shows that I went to Rome, went to Monte Carlo, I went to a Man United game, I went to a Sunderland game, and I went to Boston in New York, by New York as well. And in between that, I went to a sales conference that Dixon's were holding. I met lots of people and did that all in 1 month. So it consumes your life. And recently my kids have said, you weren't around when we were growing up. Yeah. When you look back, I wasn't, but I was having a great time as well. So I think it's important that if you've got people, the family and things like that, you do take some time out. But it's very hard to do that because you're having a good time. Yeah.
Who are your top 3 inspirational business people?
My honest role models are all the people that were crap growing up, managers in shops, and I learned an awful lot from them rather than mentors. Learned an awful lot from them, how not to treat people, how not to treat customers, and so I think they were my biggest motivators. But in terms of people that I admire, I think Bill Gates is somebody you've got to admire, because when he went to IBM, he actually bought the software for $50,000. People don't know that. If you read about it, when IBM said they need an operating system, he went and bought it from someone else, rebadged it, sold it to them. And the other thing he did, which was great, was he made sure that IBM didn't do an exclusive deal with them. He was able to then sell it to other people. that's a big mistake that IBM made, you know. And I think Steve Jobs is someone that I admire greatly, because he's got real empathy with the customer, no market research. He really understands customers. And I was fortunate to be at the launch of the iPod and the iPhone and things like that. And I didn't know I needed it until he pulled it out from his pocket and said, 1,000 songs in your pocket. I thought, bloody hell, that's what I need. I need something like that. But I didn't realize that I needed it until he told me. Because if they'd have asked me, what do you need? I would not have been able to say an iPod. I wouldn't have been able to say an iPhone. And I remember reading about, it's not reading, just watching Steve Ballmer, who was the CEO of Microsoft, and who said it's not going to work, the iPhone. It's got no keyboard on it. Not going to work. You can see it on YouTube. You can see that clip, and he was laughing at it. But he closed down a lot of businesses. Yeah. But it's not, if you ask customers, they would not be able to say they need a phone without a keyboard. They would have said a faster BlackBerry.
What role do you think networking plays in sort of establishing a business?
Networking is very, very important. I watch people at networking events, and what they do is they stand somewhere with a drink in their hand and they don't move. And life is about who you know. And you know, I've met lots and lots and lots of important people in my life, and the ones that I want to talk to, put in my phone. And the other ones just keep the business cards. So knowing people is very, very important, because it means that you can phone people up and say, I met you at I need a favor or whatever. So knowing the right people is very important. So go to networking events, but walk around, talk to people, introduce yourself, and always, always carry a business card with you. It's a Saturday today. I've got a business card here, because you never know who you're going to meet. And when you're talking to people at a networking event, at the right time, say, excuse me, I'm just going to walk around. They're not going to mind, but don't just stand there, walk around and get to know people. But if you've not got into business yet, go to business events, and you'll be surprised at how many people I meet who say, I haven't got a card. So take a card with you. I won't buy a shirt unless it's got a top pocket, because I've got a pen, and I've got, oh, you haven't got a top pocket, yeah.
I've just got pockets full down here.
I always carry the two things, a pen and my business card, every day, even on my day off.
Fantastic. And as a career path, would you recommend it, being a founder, an entrepreneur, or?
Well, yeah. I think the thing that inspired me when I was still young was the Hovis advert. And in this advert, an old guy is walking out of a mill, and he's got a clock under his arm. And he stops at the gates of the mill, and he turned around and looked at the mill for one last time. He's obviously just retired, he's got a clock. And then he walks home on the cobble streets, and then he sits in front of the fire and he has his Hovis bread, and the advert finished. Hovis, good today as it's always been. But when I saw that advert, I thought, oh my God, he's worked his entire life in that mill, and what's he got to show for it? A clock. So I was determined that when I retire, I want to be able to look back and say, yeah, I made a difference. And making a difference isn't just about making money. It's making a difference. So it could be that he raised a good family, it could be doing charity work, it could be doing lots and lots of different things. So it's about being able to look back and say, I made a difference. Because not everyone wants to be a business person. But the main thing is you've got to be able to look back and say, I made a difference. So that's what I would recommend. The businesses that I want to do are the businesses where you don't need to employ lots of people. Okay. You don't need to have a physical product where you've either got to make it or buy it and then make a margin on it by selling it to the customer. I want something where it's all virtual, on the internet, and people are coming to you, so you're not having to sell it to people. People are coming to you because they need it. And that's what the best businesses are. So there's no stock. You don't have to worry about the expiry date. You don't have to worry about whether you have to manufacture it and employ people to manufacture it. People walking through your shop and things like that. On the internet or apps, people are coming to you, and there's no physical product.
Services.
Yeah, services, yeah.
you still have sort of aspirations, things you want to do that you've not ticked off the bucket list?
For me, the biggest thing is I don't want to describe myself as the founder of Freeserve, because kids don't even know what it was, because I can't keep on saying I was the founder of Freeserve. So I've got to do something else that is successful, so that I can say this is what I've done.
Are you sort of proud in the role that you played in making the internet so freely accessible as it is today?
The internet would have happened with or without me. It just might have been a bit later. The one thing that people don't realise is that the largest ISPs were AOL and CompuServe, and they were fundamentally different from what we do now, because they had it was a walled garden. You downloaded the software on the CD and you stayed within their little walled garden, and that's it. So it's a bit like Sky, you know. And so you didn't have a browser where you could type in www and go anywhere in the world. You just stayed within their walled garden. And we came along and we had a browser, and we didn't have a walled garden, so you could go anywhere on the internet. So whatever you think of now, you can just type in the web address and you go there. So I often think if they were bigger and we hadn't have come along, then we might still be in this walled garden that they control. And very few people realise that.
Can you be a nice business, a nice entrepreneur?
Well, I mean, one of the things that you read about when people get interviewed is, you know, does money motivate you? And most of the time, people say, no, money doesn't motivate me. I do it for the list reasons. But because I've met these people, I can tell you, money motivates them, because you try and do business with them, and then you'll find out how much money motivates them. So I get motivated by money, and these people do as well. So, but you can also be nice to people as well when you're doing business. And you know, I try and be nice to people, where you get other people that actually don't give a damn about you, and they're really ruthless. And I think that's wrong. So don't kid yourself into thinking you're not motivated by money, because most people are. But there's no reason why you can't be nice to people as well. No reason at all.
And when you're managing people, I mean, you talk there about doing business with people, but in managing teams and working with people, is it possible to be a successful manager and team leader without that kind of approach?
Absolutely. I think, you know, when you've got a shop, you know, as a successful manager, when you take over a store that's not doing well, and it turns around and does well, you're in the same location with the same stock, the same customers and the same staff. And the way you do that is because you obviously make sure it's merchandise and things like that, but it's the people that are working for you. You motivate them, you make them feel that they want to come to work. And if you look at the office where you've got, you know, Brent, who thinks he's really funny and thinks he's great, but the staff hate him. And that's one of the reasons why people don't do well, because people don't like them. You know, so I like to motivate people, tell them jokes, you know, that are funny. I think, you know, I like to think they're funny, but they want to come to work. And if they're no good, then you know, you've got to do the right thing. But making sure that people like to come to work and are motivated by you is very, very important. And that's the thing that makes a difference between successful people and failing people. Money, as I've said before, does motivate people, but they soon actually get bored of it as well, because they think that they can get the same amount of money somewhere else. So if it's a bad working environment, then it's a bad working environment, so they leave. So it doesn't matter how much money you pay them, because they'll get the same amount somewhere else, because other people will willing to pay the same amount of money. So a great working environment is very, very important. Walk around, talk to your staff, and there's so many people that I get to meet where it's absolutely awful. Really is awful working there. And if it's awful, they'll leave eventually. Doesn't matter how much you pay them. And if you don't know how to do it, then you better find someone who can teach you. Well, at Freeserve, one of the things that I never did was tell the staff what the working hours were. Come when you want, go when you want. And I thought it was easier to take one person to one side who was abusing that and say, listen, you know, this isn't right, than impose a rigid work time, because I've noticed that when I go to places at 6 o'clock, everyone just walks out of the door. And I noticed that Freeserve, it was people would stay longer until they finished their work, but it meant that they could come in early as well. As you get bigger and bigger and bigger, you can't do that. But it just made that it was a better work environment, and we had a fridge full of stuff as well that they didn't have to pay for. But the reason why we could do that was because we were a smaller company. When it becomes a bigger company, then you've got to change the rules. But if you're a startup, a small little company, you should do that, and people will love it for that. And it doesn't cost much to fill up a fridge with drinks and snacks and things like that, next to nothing. And it makes a big difference.
What would you have carved on your tombstone? One sentence to be remembered by.
If I had to choose, he did it. That's it. Brilliant. You know, I didn't mess around, I just did it. Otherwise, I still would have been selling things in Dixon's.
Great.
If I didn't do anything about it. I do a lot of work with Mosaic, which is a Prince Charles charity, where you go to schools and give talks or you do mentoring. And these schools are mostly schools where the kids are at the bottom end of the scale, and their role models are probably people that have done the wrong things in life, and before they've even left school they think that they can't do it because you need to come from better schools or you've got to go to university or things like that. So I think the lesson is, it doesn't matter who you are, what background you come from, you can do it. And if you look at a lot of the entrepreneurs, most of them haven't been to university, and they come from a poor background as well. So, and one of the things I'm really proud of is the fact that I'm sat at university here and I failed all my exams, which is great. And you know, my mum, when she saw me walking through town with my cap and gown on when we were doing graduation, it made her cry, because she didn't think that I was ever going to be able to achieve anything because we came from a poor background. So I think the lesson is, anybody can do anything you want to do as long as you persevere.
Well, thank you very much for meeting us here today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Cheers.
I've met lots and lots of famous people now, lots of them, from royalty to business leaders to musicians, and also the only person that's got an aura is the Queen.
Right.
Met the President, met the Prime Minister, but the only person that's got an aura is the Queen. I've met Prince Charles, Prince Andrew, just normal people. You have a good chat with them, you can have a laugh with them. But the Queen, she walks in and you don't say anything until she speaks to you, and then you think, wow, I just met the Queen. But she's the only person. Everyone else is just normal people.
Yeah.
Normal people. Once, I can say this story. I went to Zaffarano's, which is a famous restaurant in London. And when I got there, I was sat down and there was a mirror in front of me on the wall. I looked at it and I thought, bloody hell, that's Steven Spielberg sat behind me. Behind me. And then he's chatting away. And then this guy came running in saying, oh, I'm sorry I'm late, and he sat down. And I thought, Mick Jagger? Right. So, and then this other guy comes in and he's got a beard and a bandana on. And as soon as he spoke, I thought, it's Tom Hanks. He was filming Castaway. That's why I had that,
Yeah.
And all night I was listening to what they were talking about. And I don't believe in saying, can you have an autograph or a selfie? I'd never do that. But I was listening to them talking because they were literally behind me. And they were just talking about normal everyday things.
How's the wife? How's the kids?
Yeah, it's normal. They're having a laugh about things, and the guy that I was with, I was saying, shut up, trying to listen to what this guy was saying. And that was a famous restaurant in London. But the fact they were late as well.
Yeah.